Communities across borders are on edge this morning after a Melbourne couple escaped lockdown last week, driving through regional New South Wales and into Queensland, visiting several towns along the way. These are live pictures coming into us from Dubbo in central west New South Wales this morning. That lineup is growing by the minute. There are people heeding the message to come forward for testing. My sister, who lives in that part of the world, is probably one of them. She's very angry, as are so many people out there at the moment. A 44-year-old woman tested positive to COVID on Tuesday. She's now in the Sunshine Coast University Hospital.
It's been described as incredibly selfish and un-Australian. An infected couple from Victoria breaching lockdown and travelling through Western New South Wales. Hundreds of residents in Dubbo, Forbes and Narrandera today turned out to get tested. Some areas now facing their second COVID scare in less than a month.
Queues of cars snake around Dubbo Showground, residents left with no choice but to show up and get tested.
We have to remain vigilant and know that it can pop up anywhere.
After an infected Victorian duo breached lockdown and fled the state.
I think it's the highest level of selfishness there is.
Now has inconvenienced our community and also all the other communities along the way.
Don't know the full story why they took off from Victoria and gone through. I read that they were in lockdown, but maybe they weren't, don't know. But anyway, looks like everyone's getting tested in Dubbo.
The couple stopped at Caltex in Narrandera on the 1st of June before making their way to Forbes on the same day. They stayed at the Vanderburg Hotel and had breakfast at the Brew Coffee Bar in Forbes the following morning before heading to Dubbo. They visited several locations, including Church Street Cafe and the Reading Cinema, before driving to Moree on the 3rd of June. They stayed there for 2 days before heading to Queensland.
The risk of transmission to anyone else is less. It's still there, and I still need everyone to come forward who develops any symptoms at all.
This is the second time this month the Riverina has had a brush with the virus, and locals in Narrandera are fed up.
It's turned the whole place upside down without a doubt, but you just got to go with it.
They all get in their little vans and off they come up here. You might think that in a little area outside Narrandera that you'd be safe, but you may not be. So it's really important that you use that QR system.
Further north, Moree is desperate for COVID testing kits. The town forced to turn people away from testing clinics.
Bitterly disappointed, actually quite disgusted because I think it's an incredibly un-Australian thing to do.
Amna Yang, 9 News.
Health authorities are tonight calling for calm following the death of a New South Wales woman who suffered a rare blood clot after receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine. The tragedy comes as regional towns deal with a COVID alert triggered by an infected couple driving through their communities.
An update on the vaccine rollout, and the Chief Health Officer announces a tragic turn.
Now, our second death related to the AstraZeneca vaccine.
A 52-year-old woman from New South Wales was administered the jab a few weeks ago before presenting with a severe form of blood clotting in the brain, which proved fatal.
My heart certainly goes out to the family and to all the friends and colleagues of this particular person.
2 deaths after 3.6 million vaccinations. Officials stress the risk is still very low. Meanwhile, a health alert in 4 regional communities has triggered mass testing and sparked widespread anger.
I think it's the highest level of selfishness there is as far as someone driving from a lockdown area through to a couple of states should be charged.
That was in Dubbo. The Mayor of Moree just as furious.
We've just got over a flood. We've had 3 years of drought. We've kept our communities safe, and now this rubbish.
Their rage was directed at a 42-year-old woman and her husband, who we now know were infected with COVID when they set out on a 1,700-kilometre road trip through 3 states. They left a lockdown Melbourne early on June 1, crossing the border at Tokemwell before fueling up in Narrandera, spending a night in Forbes, a night in Dubbo, 2 nights in Moree before arriving on Queensland's Sunshine Coast on June 6.
The 2 individuals are at the end of their infectious period, which is really positive news.
But not for New South Wales. They were far more infectious while in this state.
Be on high alert This is a real and present danger to us, having people who are positive travelling through our state.
The couple is now recovering in a Sunshine Coast hospital as police in 3 states investigate whether health orders have been breached. There are suggestions they were relocating for work to Queensland, and the Victorians insist that's okay.
They didn't come through the exemption process.
But it may be that Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland could potentially all take action against them.
Back in Moree, the rush to get tested overwhelmed the authorities as they ran out of testing kits.
It wouldn't happen in Sydney, it wouldn't happen in the northern beaches. There'd be organised pop-up tents and drive-throughs everywhere.
And for those communities, it will be a long weekend in isolation, as people will have to wait up to 48 hours to get their results.